That's a little bit better, I guess. It's Monday morning, and Nico needed to go early, so we got up and went out. We're just kind of finishing. It's still a little dry here right now. It rained last night, so get your coffee, tea, hot chocolate, whatever you like, and we'll be right back to do our Monday morning chat. And you know what? It's Monday. It's only one more day. And then it'll all be over. We'll either have President Clinton or, God forbid, President Trump. Well, we won't, but the Americans will. So there. I know, I look like a villain. So get your coffee, tea, hot chocolate, whatever you like, and we'll be right back. Okay, we're back in. And yeah, I'm taking off my light. This is the light I had for earlier, but okay. What I want to start off with today is in the news there was this, I don't want to call him gentleman, but there was this person in South Carolina who, on his property, they found a young woman that was chained in a container. And he has been found that he killed and buried, I think it's 5 other people, or 6. So there's 7 people, and no one sort of noticed. You know, we're always told that criminals aren't that smart. And then we keep hearing all about these little stories out there. And what is it? People think they can have control over other people and just take their lives? Society isn't that great either, because we sit there and condemn people to death. But these individuals keep going out there and killing. I mean, of course, there was the big one that everyone remembers, and that's Charles Manson. And then, I mean, there was John Wayne Gacy, and there was the cannibal one, and all these people, it's like they have control, and they're all loners. So, no one wants to be a friend of a loner, because it's so hard work. But there was someone in high school who got picked on. Now, I ended up going to a private school for 10, 11, and 12. And there were a few bullies in the class. No, Nico, not you. Sorry, that was Nico. And there was one boy, and he was of the Jewish faith. And I can remember this kid getting tormented because he was Jewish. And all these people are so quiet, and you don't know what they're actually capable of until one day they explode. And of course, everyone's talking, oh, well, was it Muslim? Were they, a big, oh my. But can we just sort of, as adults, stop being the big jerks, and everyone you work with, you don't have to like them, but you can at least go and say good morning. How was your weekend? But we all seem to fall into cliques. And just because someone does not get into your clique or you don't get along with them, they still need to be held in respect. And, if you're doing something, you can ask if they want to come along. Doesn't mean they will, but if you ask, and you ask from the heart and not, oh yeah, we'll go and, like, what was it in the 50s? All nerd party. I think there would be a lot less violence put out there. People nowadays, starting in elementary school, and there was a push, and Family Channel, when they used to do the Disney shows, they used to do the big anti-bullying. And a lot of the schools started, befriend someone who's quiet or sitting alone at the lunch table. But a lot of kids won't do that. And there's some parents out there that, oh, well, showing signs like that is showing a sign of weakness. It's not showing a sign of weakness. It's showing someone being caring. Now, I don't know whatever happened to the guy that was tormented in my class. Like, once we separated, I haven't seen him at a school reunion. I don't know if he's head of a business, has his own business, and I hope he does, because we keep hearing that nerds will take over the world. It's actually, I think, the meek will inherit the earth. But, inherit the earth does not mean killing. This guy was, getting back to the story, was a loner. I forget. I heard what he did for a living. But he just looked, he was very quiet. He was a big guy. But I think we have to start with our children and teaching them how to accept everyone. Now, that doesn't mean they have to go out and like them all, and we don't do much winning. If they're in a race and they win, that's great. But if someone gets in the race and does the best they can, they're tormented for being, oh, you're a loser. You didn't win that, did you? And I don't agree with everyone winning everything, but acknowledging them for trying is something completely different. So we need to ensure that everyone is accepted. And like I said, saying good morning, how are you? Showing that you care. You know, maybe a lot of this, oh, I don't get along with that person, will disappear if you get to know the individual. And I think if we do this, we're definitely going to learn more about people, and people will find out how close we are related to them. So why not, when you go into work, if there's someone you don't necessarily get along with, just say hi, how are you? If they're in the lunchroom saying, I'm going to make a pot of coffee, would you like one? It doesn't mean you have to sit down and buy them lunch, but just include people. Stop having all these little cliques that everyone, oh, well, yes, you see, we all wear our hair like that and you don't. So that should really be abolished in high school. But is it? No, we keep allowing this, and, we start accepting, the old thing being the cheerleaders, and, the cheerleaders are the upper class, and, how great the cheerleaders are. And we hear stories of how some of them abuse and get special privileges because they're cheerleaders or they're athletes. And what about other things that contribute to the school? Math, or whatever, the math Olympic team or whatever. The science clubs, they are laughed at, and you don't know how much you're hurting someone. So, to calm things down, take time and say good morning. We're going out to lunch. Would you like to come along? The person may say no, but he or she may surprise you. And you may get to know, and you may actually like. Ideally, when you go to work, everyone should be at the same level, except for a manager or a higher up. So, you should all be helping one another. It's teamwork. So stop. If someone doesn't fit in, make them fit in. Get out there, say hi, how are you doing? How's the new job going? Congratulate them if they do something well. And I think we may find workplace violence will be down. But maybe we should start in the schools and start teaching this in the schools. I hope that we've started this road, but, a lot of times the kids watch the adults. And if the adults aren't doing that, then why should they? And, we still have the bullies, and we still have the bullies at work. So, get out there and be inclusive. Be the one that's inclusive and welcoming everyone into your groups. something to think about. Okay, yes, it got a little hot. Our next topic is unions. Do they actually serve a purpose anymore? Most unions are built up and they're so powerful and they have so much money. But if someone starts a new job, they can't get anywhere because, oh, you have to go through, you have to do this, you have to wait and turn and people move up. And then there's all these little rules they make up, and not make up, but they agree on. And what ends happening is the people on the upper, more seniority, end up not doing anything. And, you sort of have to sit around and wait for hours. Now, years ago, unions started with a basic need that workers were not in safe conditions. They weren't making enough to live on. The fat cats, the bosses were really working off the sweat of their employees. And unions started to ensure that people got all these great things. Now, I don't think that a lot of these unions now do much. Oh, well, no, I should have done hours. And, people get hired and then they don't get hours. Well, they need flexibility. Well, what flexibility do you really need when you don't have any hours? When people get 2 or 3 hours or a week, maybe, okay, we'll say 4. Who can live off 4 hours a week? It doesn't matter what job you're at. Unless you're making $4,000 an hour, then I think a lot of the unions nowadays have lost touch with their employees. If you start 5 minutes early, like when I was part of a union, 5 minutes early, I show up. Oh, no, you're not allowed to do that. No, you're not allowed to do that. Oh, I had more seniority. You can't go off. And, there was one time before I started, a manager asked me to do something. So I quickly did it and then went to and the person said, well, I have more seniority people who could have done it. Well, there's a lot of infighting. A lot of union stuff is not fair. Now, I can understand, the hours that people who have put in their time, and I'm not against that, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it is infighting, and there are people who, well, when I was in a union, the store I was at had an awful lot of young people who went to school, during the winter months, and So, while school was in, you would get, I don't know, 20 hours at least. So, unions just breed people who don't want to work. Oh, well, I put in my time. So, what's the point of joining a union? Well, you get a better wage. Well, not really. When I worked for 7-Eleven, they tried to bring in unions, or the unions tried to get the stores unionized, and all they really got out of the whole deal was a lunch table in the back room. So it never really took off. And part of the reason is an awful lot of companies now are giving benefits and offering a pension plan and, giving time off for students and doing a hell of a lot more than years ago. But yet, a lot of these unions keep taking the money. And they build up all these great buildings and, they tell how you should vote. Well, they don't tell you how to vote. They suggest. And, it's just now they've turned into this power-based unit. So unions can have a place if they police themselves. And when I worked for a union, if a union rep came in, they would drag most of the staff into the back room for a union meeting, or, it could be someone discussing, oh, I want to be elected your president. And meanwhile, the store was virtually empty of staff because this union person came in. Now, ideally, if employees vote in a union, they should be for all employees. And basically, the union is just for the people that have been there the most. Oh, well, I don't want to work, and I don't want, It's a lot of garbage. People who really want to work and want to get out there and do stuff every day, they can't have a stable paycheck. And this is hard. A lot of young people have to go in, and you're sort of like waiting, oh, well, maybe I'll get called in. And you pretty well have to get up and get dressed, because if the store calls, you're expected to be there right now. If people don't want to work, rarely do they call and say, hey, do you want my shift? It also doesn't work. Just, I think, seniority from the date hired. So if a person is hired on a certain date, doesn't do much, doesn't work many hours, but because of that hire date, they get so many more hours whenever they want them. And I think we really have to stop and say, maybe seniority every quarter by the amount of hours you put in. Because there were people at the store, I'm not going to mention the store's name, that during the winter months or would work and run the store, but the minute summer came, you couldn't get an hour unless oh, the person wanted to party, and and it was a lot of stupidity. And I don't mean people are stupid, and I don't think the union was necessarily stupid. I think some of the actions and some of the way people were misrepresenting the rules were stupid. And like I said, I'm totally for, somebody who's worked there for years should get the hours. But don't hire a whole bunch of people to be totally flexible if they're not going to get hours. Because they have to go look for other jobs, and you're pretty well expected to drop everything and work for the union. Or not for the union, but come in because you meet the criteria. So does this actually work well or bodes well? Does the company work well? If you ask some people, oh yes, the union's the only way, we all got this. Well, there is the employment standards, which a lot of people feel they are protected by the union contracts, where the union contracts are pretty much just the same as what you would get with employment standards. So I think maybe the unions need to be realigned and come up with a more realistic way of doing business. Because people need hours. They can't sort of say, okay, well, here's 2 or 3 hours or 4 hours a week. That doesn't really do anything. No one can live off that. Just something to think about. I'm not saying abolish unions. I'm just saying maybe we need to take a look on how they work. Okay. We all know the stories of residential schools and how the natives of Canada, the Haida, Mohawk, I'm sorry if I don't know all the different bands, the Salish, I may throw a couple more in here if my memory serves me right, but the government at the time decided that they would have to make all the indigenous people Christians. So they were all put in these I can't think of the word, these schools, and while they were at these schools, the people were stripped of their identity. They were told they had to wear white people's clothing. And a lot of times they were told they had to be subservient. And a lot of times this meant that, a man or a woman could do whatever they wanted. Now, I think we see this throughout the lives of Indigenous people today in Canada. People are constantly, I know growing up, we had relatives that lived up the coast in Squamish, and we would go there, and There were really, at that time, there was only one or two streets at Squamish. And you would see these Indigenous people getting kicked out of the local beer pub or whatever more often than a white person. Now, does this mean that they are weaker? No, but I think an awful lot of them still want to hide the disgrace of these residential schools. And what happened? There's, on the CBC site, there's a story of a woman who's now a counselor for those who have been, and she was sold so her mother could get a bottle of beer. I think the natives or the Indigenous people nowadays have to be proud of what they have. A lot of them have built up the residential schools. We've taken away their land. They've said we have to follow, or they have to follow our rules. And I think that's not really working. We've already set up these reservations, and, maybe they should have self-government on the reservations. Now, just the same as if we go to another province, then we have to follow their laws. It'd be the same if they went into, Salish going into a Haida nation. They would have to follow the same sort of rules. Now, I think the British Columbian law or the Canadian law should cover whatever people have to do when we interact. If a Caucasian person goes in there and does something to hurt a Native person, then the Canadian law should step in. The self-government should take preference over a nation. And they should, have ways, same as we do, of impeaching. Because we've all heard stories of where basic necessities, where Native people are living in these poor conditions, and yet their chiefs, have a big house and cars, and, their families live it up. I think we have to ensure that things are taken care of. And if they're not, well then maybe the province has to step in then. Sorry, I lost light. I don't know how long this light lasts, so. But over their own fishing, their own land, I think self-government could work. I don't see a problem with it. But there's an awful lot out the people out there who do, and it's sort of like, well, we're giving up control. We can't allow this to happen. And, haven't we tried to control them enough? Let them grow, let them come out, and, we may learn something from them. But so often people are afraid, and they're afraid of change. And, I think we do have a few nations working in BC now. That doesn't mean they're doing an awesome job, but if it works for the community, that's fine. But, I think maybe they should draw up their own constitutions. And if a chief doesn't live up to what they are supposed to do, there should be some sort of removal. But I said earlier the province could step in, and I don't think that would be the answer. I think they've got to figure out how to do it themselves. Do you really think we can give up control? There are people, they're going to block off all the water for the rest of the province, and the laws would cover Indigenous people on the reservation. And they can do what they would like with their resources. However, if it gets tied in with a normal town, not a normal town, sorry, that's the wrong terminology, but a town close by, then the laws of British Columbia or Canada would be the rules. It's something we definitely have to think about. We have to change, because a lot of Indian culture can be lost, and people won't allow to grow and to develop. And Canada fought for self-rule. So why can't we allow our native people to have some rule on their own? But just like every other nation that came and not took control, but came to have control over Indigenous people, they all think they need control. And if they don't have the control, then we get roadblocks. We get a whole bunch of things. And you know what? The way we treat our Indigenous people need better. And like I said before, who knows, we could learn. But it's something to really think about. Okay, so a closing thought. And this kind of is how we deal with one another. Abbotsford Senior Secondary, I believe the name of the school is going to open tomorrow, or today. Yeah, it's Monday now. And I think we all have to be patient and allow the school to get back and get some resemblance of order. Today it's only going to be a half day. So our prayers should be with the school and let Abbotsford heal and get on with their life and get on with learning. and make things better, but don't forget. Have a good day.